Toothpaste, toothbrush in your mouth now. What?
Matter. You gotta be mad at me like you mean it.
Eloise, you brush those teeth. Don't make me come in here and have to say it twice.
Nice.
This is Eloise. She's my granddaughter. What are you doing?
I'm gonna make pancakes. Set the table, please.
My wife and I raised her after my daughter died. Then life threw us a curve, and now her grandmother's gone too. The love of my life.
Do you really plan on raising this girl all by yourself?
This is every day?
Yep.
Do you need to call her mother grandmother?
Grandma Wee Wee?
Yeah.
The last person I need around me right now is Grandma Wee Wee.
Miss Miller, that's right. You got a plan for Eloise in light of all this?
You tied it like a tennis shoe.
She's got a whole lot of family down with me.
Well, you can always come for a swim. Oh, Lord.
Hey, guys! Hey, baby.
I'm thinking we need to start talking about a shared custody.
Not gonna happen.
She has a father.
You live in a blind spot when it comes to your son. He's a junkie.
And you're a drunk!
Okay, thank you.
Run on home, fill your bathtub with whiskey, and just soak in it. Have yourself an old drunk man's bubble bath.
Got it.
Good. This is a little girl's life we're talking about.
You know what, Rowena? You petitioned for custody.
Louise needs more love than just what her grandfather can give her.
What she needs is stability, especially now since she's lost her grandmother.
One of her grandmothers.
That's you, me, and Daddy.
You just want her away from us, the black people.
I lost everything. I can't lose her, too.
You need to let her know right now that she's worth fighting for.
Do you dislike black people?
Not all of them. This isn't about black and white.
I love you, Mama.
This is about Eloise.
Oh, this skinny one right here. Is it supposed to be me?
No.
It's not my favorite.
For our folks joining us online, hi. I'm Kevin Thompson, aka Mr. Movie Phone, and joining us in the AOL Build series today is an actor whose life work has spanned over 40 years. You may remember him as Frank Farmer from The Bodyguard, Elliot Ness from The Untouchables, and now he is here to talk about his new film, Black or White. Let's hear it for Mr. Kevin Costner.
You know, it's really more like 30. It took, and I say that because I didn't, it didn't happen for me in my teens. It didn't happen for me in my 20s, really. I'm very much a plodder. I'm somebody that moves slow. So it was really, I was 27, 28 years old. And I had a whole life before that. So sometimes when people look at your life, if they want to determine that it's successful, that it's something, whatever title you want to put on it, they have a tendency to look at your life at that point and don't put your life in reverse. And I certainly had a life of not knowing if I was ever going to make a nickel. I had a life of, staring up at the ceiling and wondering if I'm going to be a good provider, but I had a dream.
I feel like you had some fun jobs before you became a big actor.
I've had a lot of different stuff. I know I've worked since I was 16. I know my first job when I was about 7 or 8 years old was picking apricots and then trying to sell them on the side of the road. But my first job, I think where I got my Social Security number, I was 15 years old. I was a basketball referee. I made $2.16 an hour because that was minimum. So I probably made about $24 that season. But, I've framed houses. I worked on commercial fishing boats. I drove trucks. I was a stage manager. So I'm grateful for how the last 30 years have been, but I will tell you this, I wouldn't trade the first 30 for anything.
And now you've been awarded with the Lifetime Achievement Award at the Critics' Choice Awards. So what does that mean to you? What does that mean to your family? It was a very good speech. I loved it. And you dedicated a lot of it to your children. What did that mean to your children? What did they say to you afterwards?
The Lifetime? I don't know, maybe I'm not sure if that means I should quit. They might say, are you quitting? Does that mean the jet goes away? What does that mean exactly? I don't know, maybe, I don't know. Certainly, the world isn't taking stock of my life. I have to do that. I have to understand the life that I was given, how I have rolled with that, the good, the average, the bad. So much good, though, when you think about it. I mean, we've all been injured in our life, even when we skinned our knees. We don't kind of remember those moments nearly as much as the good things. But I think that's probably a good thing in the human being. But I certainly have had my share of bruises. But my children are alive to see my career, and I'm alive to watch my children. I can't imagine anything worse than losing a child, and I don't ever have to say that that's happened to me. So the idea, I have a little 4, 5, and 7-year-old, and my goal is to make sure that I'm the one that teaches them that no one else teaches them. So if I pray, and I do pray for stuff, I pray that I'm the one that raises them. I didn't hear that. What was that?
That was a very big amen from the lady with the big hair.
Yeah, okay.
Now,
I grew up in the Baptist church. We built it in Compton, California. And I remember it was a stage just like this when we built this church. And I was 4 and I wanted to help. And I remember a man snapped a red line. He said, "You just pound on that line." And so I did, about 200 nails, all where my mom used to stand with her sister and sing in the choir. I knew she was never falling through there.
With your younger children now, what would you say is the biggest change or biggest difference from raising children back then when you started to now?
The biggest influence?
The biggest change, the biggest difference, like in just the world right now, raising children.
The world right now. I don't know. There's something that bothers me about the world, and that is if you have the economic wherewithal now, and a lot of us do, to go anywhere in the world, we have the technology to probably get halfway around the world in 12 hours. If you got the money to get on a plane, you can go see this incredible world that we have. What is so sad is that almost half the world is off limits to us. It's too dangerous. Your life is in danger. And how sad that is that we are not able to cross borders, to go to the birthplace of civilization, Mesopotamia, Baghdad. I'd like to go to Baghdad. Wouldn't you like to get a magic lamp? Isn't that where you get them? That's where I'd want to go, but you can't go. I want to go to those pyramids, but you got to think once or twice about going. Now we got to think about maybe how we feel when we go look at the Eiffel Tower. What has happened? And so what has changed? Half the world's off limits. But what has not changed is their joy of their life, the opportunities that they're going to have, that the reason I work is so that they can have the greatest possible ones. What's changed? I don't know what's changed. I mean, we're still listening to music from the 60s. That hasn't changed.
Yeah, you don't necessarily have to have a direct answer.
I have a rock and roll ear. It's really hard to hear you, even with that microphone. I'd just rather you just say it to me.
Come closer. Why not?
I get closer here. You got a microphone. I think, oh, no wonder I'm in my 60s. What?
Are we right here?
Shit.
Well, I don't want to. Did we throw off the camera too much? Okay.
Yeah,
So now.
It's so echoey.
Yeah, it's very echoey. But you know what? We're in a safe place now. We're at AOL. It's very safe here, I can assure you. Now, with your film, Black or White, it premieres today. For those of you who do not know, it premieres today. Can you hear me?
Yeah, but I would put the mic down.
You mean put it down?
Yeah, put it and I'll tell them what you're saying. So, yeah, no, that's better for me, honestly.
Just like you can hear me clearly.
I heard you twice say the same thing, so I'm hearing you perfectly. Yeah.
I'm going to keep it right here. So now your film, it premieres today.
Yes.
I'm happy to say that I saw a screening of it yesterday. And as a black man, I was very happy to not having to hear African American for 2 hours straight. It's a very politically incorrect movie, and I can respect that. But I have to ask, I'm curious, how many studios said no to this film?
He asked how many people have said no to a film. And he was so. Did you hear what he said? Pretty much, fantastic, because that's better with me down there. But they did say no, but that's not the first time people have said no to me. Dances with Wolves was one. Movies are hard to get made, and the idea of studios is changing, and they make these bigger movies. I don't want to say more important, but they make bigger movies that can make, in their minds, more money. And so that's changed a little bit, but that can't change me. You know, Jefferson said, in matters of style, go with the flow, Thomas Jefferson. In matters of principle, he said, stand like a rock. And, you know, I have to still do the things that please me. So the studios that said no to, for instance, and not just the studios, but other film companies said no to Black or White for whatever reason. It didn't match their model, didn't match their whatever it was. That's okay, because people are going to say no to you, and people have certainly said no to everybody in this room. It's what do you do after someone says no to you? And in my mind, it's very hard for me to fall out of love with something. When I fall in love with something, it's very difficult to get me out of that. So Black or White, it's not going to get made. What do? Do I pack up my tent? Do I go home? No, because I felt the movie had a chance to live through time. Field of Dreams we're still talking about 25 years later. Bull Durham, people still want to get in a bathtub with Susan Sarandon. I'm sorry. Dances with Wolves, people still want to go west before it's gone. Movies have a chance to say things, to give us images that we'll never, ever forget in our life. And so I will continue to make the political thriller, the Western, the romantic comedy. But sometimes you get a chance to make a movie about the moments you're living in. And right now we are swimming in America. We are trying to hang on to something so that we can go forward. We can collect ourselves. And this idea of race, we have been dancing around for a long time. Our problems did not start in August in St. Louis. They have been with us for a long time. And so it's not like I'm smart enough to know what the answer is, but as someone who makes film, produces film, I saw a chance to make a movie about an authentic moment that we're living. And sometimes when it comes to race, we look backwards. We look at Butler. We will look at Selma, 12 Years a Slave. That's how we have a tendency to look at racism. But sometimes, for me, I saw a chance to have an authentic look at where we are at in race today. And I'm not afraid of it, just like I wasn't afraid of Field of Dreams and guys coming out of corn. I thought, but our obligation was to do just the things that you said as you started this. This is we do not pull punches. We're not politically correct. And by the way, when I say politically correct, when someone says, well, I'm not politically correct at all, I'm always leery of that person. And I'm leery of it because I sometimes think I'm not politically correct means I'm giving you a license to be cruel. What we really want is someone to be honest across from us, not somebody who just feels like they can go right into our heart. This movie had to play it by the bone. We had to see ourselves. And I wanted to make a movie that I thought would be as relevant today, here in 2015, 50 years from now. So every decision we made and why I decided to walk down the hall and ask my wife that if I could pay for this movie is why I did it. And I said, I want this movie to live forever. Yes, it's going to have its opening weekend. Yes, that begins today. But my biggest goal for Black or White is the movie that you choose after you see it, turn around and want to share it, the same way we do when we read a great book, when we hear a wonderful piece of music. Sometimes when we see a movie, after we enjoy it, we think, I want to tell somebody about this movie. That's my hope for Black or White.
Right before we walked out of here, actually.
Don't put that up there.
Right before we walked out on the stage, the question that you asked me was, I know you saw the film. Would you tell anyone to go? Would you tell people to go see it?
Yeah.
And I absolutely will, because not only is it important, but it was a funny movie, and it came across very honest, very real. That being said, I apologize to those at home with sensitive ears, but there was a point in the movie where the word nigger was said. Mm-hmm. And anytime there's a movie with racial content, you watch it with the idea that, you know what, this word is going to be dropped soon. I don't know when, but I'm sure it's going to come out. And when it dropped in this film, it resounded throughout the theater. I mean, everyone got quiet. It was shh.
Yeah. You know, you can take a movie like Django, a really good movie, and they can say it 500 times, and somehow we get numb. And I say it one time in black or white, and the oxygen went out of the room. It's an ugly word, and it's a word that's been used. It's a word I've used in my life, early in my life. It's a word that was completely around my life. I was born in 1955. I never saw it used in hostility. I never saw it used to a man's face, but I heard it in jokes, the same way two Polacks, two wops, two you can fill in the blanks. But at some point in your life, you understand that this word, even in its most unoffensive way, is offensive. And I hope that this word disappears in our rearview mirror. And Black or White is a movie that deals honestly. I would not have made this movie if we didn't say that word, because people say it. And people who say it sometimes aren't even racist, but they don't know why they're using it. They don't know the level of offense. They don't understand what it's like to be black. They don't understand what it's like to actually be marginalized. It's an easier deal in America being white. That doesn't mean we don't have to move forward, but if we don't understand it, a beautiful woman will walk by a construction site. Pretty sure she's going to get some whistles. Pretty sure of that. But I'm sure as she walks, she's saying, God, I hope it just doesn't get uglier than that. For people of color, people of different ethnicities, people of race, they endure a lot of things in America, and they wonder. And when you're an adult, maybe your skin hardens, right? Maybe this is the world we're living in. But the thing that's hard, the thing that's the most crushing for anybody out there is to think that their child is going to experience that. And all I can say is if I see my child playing in the playground and he gets knocked down by a child on purpose, someone who's bigger, and another child would come to the defense of my child, I would certainly pay for that child's college. We want to protect people. And when you see somebody step in front of somebody you love, that's an incredible feeling. We have to step in front for each other to protect each other's feelings. We have to get to that place. Are we? We are not. But I saw Black or White as a movie where I got to say things that I felt like I wanted to say for a long time. I think Octavia Spencer got to say things that she wanted to say for a long time for herself and for her culture. Anthony Mackie, the same thing.
What do you think, because from watching the film, films like this.
What's that?
Films there's
that siren could be
ambulance.
coming for me.
I guess
Let's
this
just
isn't a
wait
safe
for a
place.
second. No, that other guy.
Now, you mentioned Octavia Spencer. You mentioned Anthony Mackie. But one of your co-stars, little Jillian, who plays your granddaughter, Eloise, they normally say that it's hard to work with kids. It's hard to work with animals.
Yeah.
But you seem to have a very special bond with Jillian.
Listen, I did have a special bond with that little girl, and we will forever, and she's going to grow up to be a big girl. But when I will see her forever, she will be this. It's the same in my own life. My children, my littlest ones will see me as an older man when they're going to their prom. I'm probably not going to look like the majority of dads that the kids she goes to school with because I'm 60 years old now. But she will have these movies to look back and say, that's what my dad looked like at one point. The movies lock us in time. And for Jillian, we so needed her to be good in this film, and she was. And, that's what the movies do for us. I mean, people forever have locked me and Whitney forever in time. I'm her imaginary bodyguard, right? But that's not the way the world sees it. They saw it as somebody who was there to protect her, and ultimately, at the end of the day, I couldn't protect her. And so that was a great loss to all of us.
Now, speaking of this film, You say, I heard that you said that this film has a lot of things that you like in movies. What exactly are those things that you look for when you watch movies, and what makes them great?
Well, we all want to feel like we get our money's worth, right? It's just getting to be more expensive and more expensive. So let's just go to the bottom line, all right? We want to feel like we got our money's worth when we see a movie. But something always happens when you see a movie, and one of the things I miss most about movies are the curtain. Where'd the curtains go? I always loved that idea when they opened. Remember that? Because to me, when the curtain opened, it always meant something magical could happen. When I was little, my feet stuck out like this because they couldn't hit the floor, and I wanted something magical to happen. When I go to the theater now, my feet hit the floor, and I still want something magical to happen, and often it doesn't. But sometimes a movie can be about things, like I said, that you never, ever forget. So what I want to have happen, I try to think about what happened to me when I first went to movies. And when I first went to movies, I was able to see who the hero was. That was interesting. That guy's the hero. And that person behaves badly. And the more movies I went to, I began to understand who I wanted to be versus who I didn't want it to be. I understood that I wanted to be the hero. And so we grow up. And so now we'll watch our children go to the movies, and they're going to have those same examples, hopefully. So what do we get as adults? What do we get when it comes to black or white? Because we played it honestly, because we played it at real, you're going to see the fringes of racism. You're going to see the deep-seated ideas of racism. You're going to see racism used as a tool. And so as adults, we're going to see something we've lived with for a long time. And we get the chance to go, maybe I've been that, but I don't want to be that anymore. So we get to see ourselves in black or white. And that's why I hope you go. That's why I hope you take someone with you. In fact, Anthony Mackie said something very profound, but in fact very simple. He said, black or white, take someone with you that doesn't look like you. Take someone with you that doesn't look like you. And then after that movie, you have a conversation.
Last night when I went to the screening, I would say that the ratio amongst blacks and whites it was overwhelming. It was 10-1. And then afterwards, I spoke
10-1 who?
10 black to white.
There was 10.
Way more black people than white people in that theater. Way more.
What happened to you guys?
Way more.
Okay.
And then speaking to white colleagues of mine, if they showed any interest at all to see this, they said no. But then speaking to all my black friends, they all already have dates on when they're going to see it. They're all planning to go see it. Why do you think that is?
Why perhaps white people won't go see this?
Yeah.
I believe they will. I believe AOL has a big reach.
Bring it around. Bring it around.
I believe AOL has a big, big reach. Some people just get there first, and I don't know why. I can't speak to why that is. But it doesn't matter to me who sits down. What matters to me is how you feel when you get up. And this movie will live. You know, movies have a tendency to be measured by what happens on opening weekend, but we all know that can't be the true measure of a movie, because there's some crummy movies that make a whole bunch of money. You know, a whole bunch of money. Can I get in one? Let me hear an amen. And if it's crummy enough and makes enough money, they're going to make two of them. I don't know. This movie is for everyone. I can't say that for all the movies I've made. You know, there's movies that are political thrillers that certainly I like making them. But sometimes you make a movie that you feel like everybody maybe should see this movie. Sometimes, you know, maybe out there people are tired of hearing about race. Can't we just get off this subject, right? We've been hearing about it since August. You're really that tired? Because there's a lot of people who are tired of race. And we want to move forward in a positive way. And people who are victimized by the idea of racism, they want to move forward too. And they're tired of it too. We have to, I wish I was Solomon. I wish I was king of the world for one day and I could just fix it. But I can't. So what can I do? I guess I can make a movie. And if I make a movie, let it be as honest and as close to the bone that people might watch it and decide, I don't want to be that anymore. I want to be that.
Now with this movie, you talk on a lot of.
You got to drop it. I want to hear you.
You need to just hear me. Well, you
You're
speak
a
on
good-
that. Well,
you're a good man
they
here.
need to hear me too. But this movie touches on a lot of topics: alcohol and substance abuse, loss, and abandonment. Now, specifically when it came to abandonment, that touched pretty close to home for me. And there's a scene that happened that when it did happen, I was very upset. Very upset. For the right reasons. It was done well. But it made me want to call my father afterwards and curse him out.
You called your dad.
I did not.
You did
I
not.
did not. I've never had this conversation with him. I don't plan to.
Good.
I don't know how it would go. But I was upset and it made me want to curse him out.
Well, I hope you do have that conversation. You know, Field of Dreams was about things that go unsaid between fathers and sons. And when that little simple movie was over, those dead players came out of the corn. A lot of men wept. Not just men, but a lot of men wept and made it a point to go and call their fathers. So I appreciate what you're saying. You know, I appreciate what you're saying.
If you could, I guess, address, you don't have to if you don't want to, if you could address the folks at home, the folks here in the studio, because there may be some fathers watching this right now who aren't doing the right thing.
Well, you know, I don't have that platform, you know, to say that. I think you as a son who's felt that, your voice speaks louder than mine ever could. It really does. And I think you have a platform to speak. You have every reason in the world to speak. And I hope you do. And whether or not you get the answer you want, you as a young man will have posed that question. And Black or White would not have been successful had we not touched that bone in you. Had we not rekindled a fire that's down low in you. And movies have that ability. But they only have that ability if they play it even. Because Reggie is not the only person that has a level of addiction. I do too. The characters in Black or White are not cliches. It's a story that was based in part on real events. The difference in the real story was the actual black family in South Central and the white family in Brentwood got along perfectly. They raised this child perfectly. There was no acrimony there. Reggie's character was the true character. He was just not going to be involved. For whatever reason, he wasn't there.
Which actually leads me to my next question. And I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit.
Okay.
But let me reiterate, I love this film.
That's all right. But you got to lower that mic.
I'm lowering it. I'm lowering it.
There you go.
Now, we live in a world where social media is a very powerful component. There's Facebook, Instagram, Keek, of which you should all follow @MoviePhone on. Now, there's all these social platforms, and there's also Twitter, and then there's Black Twitter. Twitter, then there's Black Twitter. You got
Really?
it? Yes, there's a such thing as Black Twitter. And I could imagine the folks on Black Twitter, I could already hear them saying that this movie was told from a white man's point of view, and that they would feel a little bit upset that the black family seemed, I guess, more at fault, at least a bit more unstable to raise this child. Like, how would you address those concerns?
Well, number one, I would urge them to really see the movie because that family is really together down there. Wee Wee, played by Octavia Spencer, has six licenses. She's holding her fam together down there. That family is locked in love. They're not a perfect family. But, you know, when you tell a story, I mean, when I made Dances with Wolves, some people thought, well, this is about Indians. And I said, Native Americans. And I said, well, that's how you see it. I saw it as a movie about a white soldier who found his way out onto the prairie and encountered Native Americans. My job in making that film was to make as honest portrayal of them as human beings as I could. This story starts with where the grandchild is being raised currently. And if you want to look at a scene, you can look at the scene where I play the piano. That little girl plays piano in my house with just a black tutor. And it looks kind of boring, because if you've ever had to practice piano with a metronome, it's boring. That's why most kids start scratching the chalkboard. Let me out of here. What do we do in our movie? We show Eloise playing piano down in South Central, and it's filled with her cousins. It's filled with family. There's a warmth down there. And Elliot, my character, needs to see that there's a level of security down there that I was very suspicious of. Reggie's a true character, so you can't fault that situation. But what I would say to anyone listening is that everybody in this audience right here, and truly everybody that's like watching, absolutely knows, and let's be honest, there's millions of families raise children, brothers and sisters. They're all fed the same food at the table. They all sleep in a bed under the same roof. They all hear the same stories, probably got the same discipline, and one of the brothers, one of the sisters really spins out. And they end up weird. They end up on drugs. They end up, that's too trivial a word, weird. But they spin out. That's a fact of life in America. It's not a black situation. It's not a white situation. Families have people that fall off the tracks. And everybody looks at everybody else and goes, I don't know how that happened. I heard everything my dad was saying, my mom was saying. They did too. And they chose a path. And so it's not a cliche to have someone in a family of 30 having some difficulty. And that's what I would say. And I would say that when we this is one story. There's 1,000 stories. I made one story about a white man's encounter with Native American people. I made one story now that has dealt with racism. We chose to do it our way, which I think was as honest as we could be, with eyes wide open, that was played very balanced.
Okay, I'm gonna ask one more question before I throw to the audience.
Drop it down.
Right here, I'm low.
It's hard for me.
I'm low.
Okay.
In terms of national discourse and race relations, this film boldly goes places that no film goes. How do you want Black or White to redefine the way people see race?
Well, we saw a movie, our hearts broken 1,000 places, we laughed 100 times, and no one died. We can stare at the truth. It's up to filmmakers, when they're going to make a movie about this, to get as close to the truth. This is not a story. Racism is not something you play with. And it's not something you even really joke about right now, because the stakes are way too high. It's not that things are off limits, but this is tender. And so exposing ourselves to movies that deal with this subject, boy, I'd look forward to another movie that feels like it informs me. You know, people say all the time, well, I'm colorblind. And I say, really? You're colorblind. You don't see. No, I don't. Well, I think that's a bit of a lie. I think colorblind is more code for, I don't want to see color. I just want to accept somebody for who they are. So that's good. But I think the truth is, when I see a black person, that's what I see. And I think we need to be honest about that, because I suggest, as the movie suggests, that when you see me, you see a white person. But the miracle or black or white, and the miracle for me and why I made the movie is, that's not what defines me as a person. What's going to define me as a person is what's my next thought, and my next thought after that, and my next thought after that. If I see a beautiful woman, fine, sue me, she's beautiful. The skirt's too short, the whatever, I see it. But if my next thought is about still respecting her as a colleague, not stalking her around the office, then I haven't defined myself as somebody, that's a sexist. It's just, I notice something and I move on. And Black or White, when I read it and it said it's not my first thought that counts, It's my second, third, and fourth. I honestly thought, Kevin, that was a genius. I thought that was genius, and it was simple words, and they spoke out loud to me. And I felt somehow an obligation to share that moment in the courtroom, a moment that I never thought I'd hear, and when I heard it, I definitely wanted to share it.
Now, we're going to open up the floor for anyone with questions for Kevin Costner. We have Michelle right over here.
Time for just a couple of questions.
We have a young, right here in the front.
Kevin, that is a good-looking suit.
Thank you very
Kevin,
much, Kev.
You mentioned earlier that Reggie was the black sheep and that millions of families have black sheep. And also you mentioned choice. When it happens to every single family pretty much, it may not just be a choice, it may simply be. Choice means that you could change that person easily. Do you think possibly that it's not a choice, that it happens because that's the way it happens?
To Reggie?
Yes.
No, there's circumstances that why you end up the way you want. I mean, listen, I've made some bad choices. Did they continue to find me? You know, whatever Reggie's story was, whatever caused him to spiral downhill, we weren't able to tell that story. We did it a little bit where his mom said he never got over losing his dad, so we veiled it a little bit. And my character rejects that. Come on, there's a moment in time where you have to move on. That's maybe a little not understanding on my part. But that's what made the movie honest. It's like, come on, snap out of it, move on. Well, some of us have trouble moving forward. I mentioned I was lucky enough to not have my children pass away before I die. I think if I did, I would never live another happy day of my life. So maybe I need to give Reggie a break as a character. Maybe he hasn't got over it. But the other kids did. So it's just not a cliche. It's a real thing. And, you know, people in our country, you know, not everybody can just pick themselves up by their bootstraps. Not that easy. There's a whole group of people that think people ought to just be able to snap out of it and get along. It doesn't work that way. A lot of us can, but some of us can't. It's up for us to have a high level of empathy.
It's not working. Oh, Mr. Costner, I read the reviews before I came here, and these are some of the best New York reviews you've had in your career, and New York critics aren't kind. They also say that there's a lot of shading in your character. You're not the heroic person that maybe in your younger days you would. And I'm wondering, why is it the character people, the Robert Duvall's, the Gene Hackman, the character guys who seem to always show the imperfections and the flaws, and you leading guys don't seem to, do you search out roles where you do show the imperfections of the human being?
Well, I've tried to, number one, you're talking about some of my favorite actors. Gene Hackman, I mentioned him in my Lifetime Achievement. You can sit down unless you feel like lecturing me some more. No. Listen, I've tried to play things with a great deal of measure of character. I played a serial killer in Mr. Brooks. You know, I played a guy in Perfect World. I am a 6'1" white guy. Okay, so I'm going to play a lot of leads in American movies. I'm occupy a really good category. It's a little bit easier for me than it is for women. It's a good category to be in. I try to pick movies that have that. Wyatt Earp, I played a very flawed character. So for those that purposely don't want to play a character, I think that's probably too bad. I've enjoyed playing the flaws, and I have played pretty righteous characters too. So I can't speak for everyone.
Okay, we're going to close the questions for now. Kevin, we'd like to thank you for coming out here today. And we know you just celebrated a big birthday. So on behalf of AOL and Moviefone, we contacted our good friends at Madewood Cupcakes, Love and Beyond, and we brought us some black and white themed cupcakes for you.
Thank you.
For the audience.
Beautiful. I have a flash for everyone. I have a real flash for everyone. You're going to be 62. You better treat me nice. You better treat everybody around. My daughter did one thing for me, and I'll leave with this on my birthday. I didn't want to have that 60th birthday party. Not because I am afraid of the number. I just have a lot of friends, and I didn't want them to stop what they were doing, fly across the country to be with me. I've had enough attention for a lifetime. I was a little embarrassed the whole bit. But my daughter and my wife, oldest daughter, wouldn't have any of it. And they said no. And my oldest daughter, Annie, she asked 60 of my friends, I guess in honor of my 60th birthday, to write highly personal letters to me. She gathered them all. She asked them to write her 2 or 3 weeks before they came. And she wrapped them up and she put them in a treasure box. A treasure box. And she set them in front of me, and I looked at all my friends, and she goes, "There's your treasure." And it was. And I have been feasting on those letters for the last 2 weeks, reading 3 or 4 a night. You're going to be 62. I hope somebody brings you a treasure box, because it's nice to know what people think of you that have known you the longest and loved you the most.
That is a very beautiful story. Oh, Kevin wants one. You can take mine. We actually, I believe there's 60
Boy,
cupcakes.
those went
actually.
fast.
Yeah, there are actually 60 cupcakes. Beth, you want to take mine? Sure. Thanks. And I'll close it out. Thank you to AOL. Thank you to Movie Phone. I hope you guys enjoyed the build. Black or White is in theaters today. I've already seen it, and I plan on seeing it again. If you'd like to see it, log on to moviephone.com for your theater listings and showtimes. I'm Kevin Thompson, a.k.a. Mr. Movie Phone. This is Kevin Costner. See you at the next Build series.